Everybody, the biggest chunk of the budget is personnel for everybody.
At this point though, I don't see anybody else watching. We are, you know, like team, my watch says 8:30.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, there's extra copies of survey notes. There are copies of the new Utah Seismic Safety Commission annual report that just came out, hot off the press. I just picked them up from Envision Utah on Monday. And we had a bunch of extra calendars. Normally we charge for them, but I grabbed like a half a box for you guys. So if you want to like disperse them to your friends or hang them up in your offices and whatever, those are for you.
Patrick, how do I know when Paul's ready to start recording?
You just started.
We are good to go.
Thank you, Paul.
How's it going?
Paul is my raft buddy. Paul and I rafted the Colorado River together last year.
I thought you said rap.
Raft.
Really, you guys gonna?
We did the 8-day trip to the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow.
Paul came with us. So yeah, well, let's go ahead and get started then.
No, but I probably grabbed it. I probably should really. I think I have
Are
it.
you like the pansies?
Yeah, I am. I admit it. Look.
It's possible I left it in my phone.
I am.
So Lisa, I'll turn to you and we'll start when you're ready to go.
Okay. I'm Elissa Richards, chairperson of the Utah Geological Survey Board, and welcome everybody. And I'd like to call this meeting of the Utah Geological Survey Board to order. It is now 8:31 on January 15th, 2025. Thanks. This meeting is held both in person and virtually with Google Meet. In compliance with Utah's open meeting laws, this meeting is being recorded in its entirety. And this recording is classified as public record. Following board members are in attendance: myself, Dave Garbrecht, Ken Fleck, Becky Hammond, Neil Burke, and we believe Riley Brinkerhoff and Rick Chestnut are remote.
They're not on yet.
They're not on yet. Okay. We anticipate they may come in and be remote.
We hope so.
I'll text Rick.
Yeah. And we have Stephanie Barber Renteria, ex officio from SITLA. Thank you. The following individuals representing the Utah Geological Survey and the Department of Natural Resources are in attendance: Bill Keach, Division Director; Darlene Batatian, Deputy Director; and Cheryl Wing, Board Secretary. Do we have anybody else?
Patrick.
Yeah.
And we have a couple on the hall.
Yeah.
Coming in.
Okay, we'll introduce them as they come in. If present, we welcome all visitors and interested persons at this time. And as a courtesy to everyone in this meeting, at this time we ask for all cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices to be turned off or changed to silent mode. And all of our board motions and votes will be reflected in the minutes and recorded by individual board member. And let us now proceed with the agenda.
Here's our agenda. Approval of minutes is now.
Yep. All right, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the August 7th board meeting?
So moved.
Okay. Yeah.
I second.
Becky. Thank you for that motion. We have a motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. We now approve the minutes from the UGS Board Meeting from August 7th, 2024. We'd like to also have a motion to approve the formal approval of all the project proposals since our last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank
You
you.
just heard Neil, I don't know if you, can I jump in here?
Yes,
for a minute?
please.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
So we approve via emails proposals for contracts, but we formally ratify them.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you should have seen an email,
Yeah.
at least while you were on, once you were approved.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you understood what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I think we also increased the amount of the proposal that requires board approval to, was it 50,000? So a lot of the smaller proposals that you're seeing are really an FYI for you. So just remember there's that threshold that, formally requires approval.
And you sometimes tell us that too.
I always
You
tell you
tell
that
us
this is
that,
for
yeah.
your
She
information.
does.
no need for
Yeah,
approval.
so that's really helpful, so, and we do have a motion to formally approve the project proposal since our last meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. And we'll go ahead and formally approve the minutes from the August 7th meeting, thank you.
Okay, now I guess you can turn over to me.
Yep.
Okay. We always put up our core values of DNR. If you walk in our buildings, every month, they spotlight 4 employees that exemplify like the core values for the DNR. You'll see their picture hanging in the elevator. So this month, one of our employees in Cedar City, Shadrach, is hanging on the elevators we've had in the past. Let's see, Star has been there. I'm trying to think who else. Then 2 or 3 others. Okay. Anyway, so they're exemplary. Couple license plates. Okay. I want you to look at the license plate left. I did this in my staff meeting yesterday. What does that say?
Just try it.
Just right.
Just try it.
Just try it.
See, we have the mixed bag. Same thing we had yesterday. Just right or just try it.
Yeah.
I saw it, when I first saw this plate, I said, just try it.
Yeah.
And my wife goes, no, it's just right.
Right.
Some of those are good.
And we just heard both. They came from all of you guys. So. And I saw that on a car down in Richfield.
That's cool, it's illegal.
But yeah, well, they changed the state law. Did you see that this year?
No.
You don't
No
have to have a
front.
license.
Yeah, I saw
Oh,
that.
so that's front.
And this was a front plate. They said they bought it at Bryce Canyon.
That's cool.
It's got the mighty 5 parks across the bottom,
That's
so
cool.
Zion Capitol Reads, arches.
But I always usually wear a pin that says Utah Rock. So I thought it was a pretty cool play. Anyway, so conduct proposals, we already done that. UGS Employee of the Year was Diane. Many of you may remember that from our December. But the DNR also handed out annual awards. And this year they, like Employee of the Year, Community Outreach of the Year, across all the 11 divisions in DNR. So this year they added Newcomer of the Year. So the very first person ever to win the Newcomer was our very own Kate Bastian, who works in our groundwater program. So out of all the 4,000 plus employees in DNR, whatever that number is, 2,000, I think 100 we have for DNR. It's a huge number. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. We know that Sam Quigley retired, stepped down, and Neil is now here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Neil. Jeff Quick. Jeff's super quiet guy, but he was here 27 years.
He was here when I worked here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Aw.
Oh, yeah.
I think some years ago I said to Jeff, we were talking, because he and I are about the same age, so. I says, so what are you thinking about retirement? He goes, I don't know. He goes, so how will you know? And he goes, I asked my dad that question. He says, you'll just know. And so last summer he came and built, it's time. So he just knew it was time. Tom Dempster, who was assistant curator, also retired yesterday. So I think today's officially his last day. Grant, if you ever knew Grant, he was a tech and wetlands. He left. I think he moved to New Mexico. Is that right? I think someone told me that. Jake Alexander, who's been in our energy minerals program, took a position over in forest fire and state lands. He's running their minerals program for FFSO.
Saw that on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, great opportunity for him, and he's right across the hall where we can find him when we need him, and vice versa, right? So I think that'll hopefully increase collaboration between FFSL and us also.
As Mike Vandenberg put it, we now have a spy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty good. New positions, and then we'll have some new employees here in the back. Diane, who's been running our wetlands program, you've met Diane. She wanted to step away from that. So she really wanted to kind of shift her career and to kind of get into data analytics. she originally had written a letter of resignations and was going to go elsewhere, but we happened to have that very need. And so she just slid over and it's been really good. So that happened in the fall. So we were able to hang on to Diane, but she was ready to make a change, and I'm glad we were able to be responsive
Yeah.
to that need for a change.
I'm glad she's still with us. She was right as she was publishing her Wetlands Plants of Utah book. So I'm glad she was able to stay at the survey. It's so rare to see somebody be like, I want to step back from, management roles. And so she's happy. The groundwater group is happy. So yeah.
Good. Jen Miller, whose official job title ever since I got here was tech writer. Yet she's ran the whole media outreach group, oversaw all of our publications, all the graphics, the people reported to her, was a supervisor, and her job title just really, tech writer did not capture the breadth of what she does. And so we did we spent a long time sleuthing through the job titles in the state, because you got to give them a job title that the state approves. I just can't make up a job title, And when I worked at the software business, oil and gas side, I had a job title that was evangelist. We just made it up, I was over 3D visualization, and in the late 90s, it was a really brand new thing, and nobody knew what it was. So I was the evangelist who traveled around the world evangelizing. We can't do that at the state. We have to so we found project and portfolio manager. So we've actually applied that job title to Jen and to Mackenzie Cope. Mackenzie's going to do it in data management program. She's going to oversee a subset of the employees under Marshall to do data management, writing the front end for the software that we put on. So those are some changes in job titles. So new hires, and I know we've got several of them here. So I'll just go start talking. Michelle, this is Michelle. Can you?
Hi.
You want to say anything about yourself?
Mark said I wasn't gonna have to say anything.
Oh, well, then go.
No.
You want me to say something?
No, it's fine. Yeah, I've been here for, I think, 5 months. Been a ride. It's been great. Learning a lot. And looking forward to bringing the bookstore to be more visible.
She's doing a great job. She's running the bookstore, and we now have puzzles. Not only the geologic map of Utah, but ancient Lake Bonneville, and an 1890s map of the Great Salt Lake. So they're all, and one of them sold out.
The ancient Lake Bonneville sold out at Christmas. And yeah, so we just got them in yesterday.
That new one. My boss says he wants to order 100 of them to hand out to all the legislators.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a great idea.
So we'll have some fun. But they're rearranging the bookstore. They've done a lot of cleanup. So if you haven't seen the bookstore lately,
Yeah, come visit.
come visit.
Yeah,
There were a lot of dust bunnies in that place.
It really, it is a breath of fresh air in there. If you haven't been to the bookstore in a while, take a minute and drop in. It's just, it looks refreshed. Michelle has done an amazing job just with the atmosphere in the place, as well as kind of reviewing our online shopping and how all that's working, and just really tying in a lot of great stuff. It's a new day there. So
More to
thank
come.
you. In 5 months, she has done all this.
And
So-
she went out and pursued, we'll be able to start selling national park passes.
Oh, that's smart.
And local art.
Yeah, we have some
These
local artists
local
and
artists.
stuff in there.
That's good stuff.
It's kind
Cool.
of everything Utah. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And Tara, have you been to this board meeting yet?
No, I think me and Michelle started the same week.
Yeah.
So I've also been
Yeah.
here about that.
So this is Tara Shreve. You want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so my official title is research consultant, but I'm working more specifically with radar satellite data to understand how the ground deforms in Utah. So we're applying that to things like land subsidence, being able to identify what regions are subsiding that we know of, or ones that we may not have know of, identifying landslides, looking at ground deformation, if there are any earthquakes, and other sources from maybe mining subsidence. So it's been really interesting so far. I've really enjoyed the work that I've been doing and getting to work with different programs within UGS.
We were able to sneak her away from Alaska. We're glad to have her. Let's see, Elena, is your name spelled right up there?
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm a geotech. I mostly work on the data preservation stuff. So I do a lot with like the archiving process, and then I also am doing a lot with contributing to the subsurface database. I've been here almost 4 months.
Thank you. And I think Michael's our newest employee.
Newest.
Good. This is my 7th day. Yeah. So I'm from Northwest Indiana, where there's lots of wetlands. So I'm very happy to be here working on wetlands. I didn't know that would be really a possibility out west. So very happy about that. I'm doing wetland mapping for the groundwater and wetlands department.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
So did I leave anybody out? I think that's everybody. We have an offer extended for a wetlands coordinator. It's a position that was funded by an EPA grant. So we went through a full interview process. There's an offer that's been extended in the last few days, so we're waiting to hear. So anyway, that could be an exciting adventure as well. So that's everything I have on new employees. So, you're welcome to stay, you're welcome to leave, you can do whatever you want. Our board meeting will go until about 11.
All right.
See ya. Thanks, you guys, for coming.
I wasn't asking you to leave. I understand you have options.
Yeah, I'll take care, guys. Awesome.
Anyway. So I'm just gonna jump in here and get going. I still don't see that Riley or
I just got a message from Riley. He's having a hard time joining, saying they're not letting him join.
I don't know why there's no, usually it tells me if someone's waiting and I have the option to let him in.
yeah.
Something I think on the settings, I don't know if it's set to some kind of,
Tell him to use the phone call.
okay, yeah.
He can use the phone and call in. That should be able to allow him to get in.
If they can see the screen.
There's usually a pass ID. Well, you don't have to see this. Well,
I have a YouTube link too that I'm gonna send in, but.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Watch that. He'll be, I think, like 10 seconds behind us, but maybe 5 seconds.
That's okay.
Chairman, Director Keach, our apologies. With the 2 other concurrent events going on this morning, we were not monitoring that. Rick has been admitted, and we will keep a better eye on that. Again, our sincere apologies.
Yeah, I do see Rick. now.
Okay, Rick's in.
I'm gonna tell Riley to try again.
I'm gonna
alright.
try again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so I'll keep going then. So last year, I need to change my logo now, but it was last year we had a number of activities for our 75th anniversary, which is pretty cool. Did the board field trip in September. Well, you all got an email about me earlier in the fall about the budget stuff. We'll talk more about it a little later, so I won't dive into it right now. Something that will impact probably in a major way is the governor. I don't know if you saw his announcements at Operation Gigawatt. This was the idea for Operation Gigawatt had its birth, inception, and promotion in the DNR. You know, the name was actually coined by my boss, Nathan Schwabach, who's one of the deputy directors at DNR. And this stems out of Rocky Mountain Power basically saying we produce about 4 gigawatts of power in the state. And they foresee a need to be to 8 gigawatts, which is huge, a huge change. So you're going to see a lot of stuff in the legislature this year. The governor's made energy and housing, as he said, his top 2 priorities for this coming, this new term in the next 4 years. And so Operation Gigawatt had 2 big distinct parts. One was a big effort to how do we look at small scale nuclear to generate electricity in the state. And the other one is how do we significantly expand our geothermal generation in the state. And so UGS, I think I've got it up here. We wrote a building block of $5 million to really expand what we do over the next few years in geothermal efforts. And the governor put in his budget recommendations, 4.3 million of that. So we'll see where that goes. We'll be watching that closely.
It's gotten a lot of visibility, and really strongly promoted, and Joel and Nathan have been, they're like, ask for everything you need, let's put it in the budget. So I mean, that's something that could dramatically change our energy and minerals program. So, fingers crossed on that one.
We're excited.
Are you working at all with INL and their SMR work that they're doing?
I am not in the UGS, but there are other agencies.
Yeah, maybe OED. Our role would be to provide like the foundational science on, if they're gonna go with reactors, maybe hazards, issues in the area, site selection issues. And with geothermal, this really allows us to take the next step. Are we presenting, are Christian and Mike presenting today on geothermal?
They are.
Yeah, so you'll hear more about what this building block would be intended to do. But there's, with the siting of the Fervo project, the groundwork that UGS did was really crucial for Fervo to be able to convince their investors to move forward. And so if we can provide more sites like that, the investment in the state was phenomenal from Fervo. So that's kind of the goal. And, both of those sources of energy, nuclear and geothermal, they're clean power and they're baseload power. So, so that's where they're going.
So I know our legislators, they did a group trip up to INL last summer. This is part of what's been driving it, I'm calling the small modular nuclear reactor type stuff. They've been up to visit and see, so they've seen the stuff firsthand. We also have in Emory County, I'm trying to remember which town it's in.
The Summerfell.
We have the Summerfell Energy Research Center, which has been there for a number of years. The county started it up. It's an old building. It was owned by one of the coal companies for a long time. They called it the Central Warehouses. Huh?
I used to go there a lot.
Oh, did you?
When it was the Central Warehouse? Yeah. And
Day.
my son's father-in-law did the same thing. He moved down there in Farron. And so anyway, it's now, and through legislation passed last year, ownership of that was transferred to DNR. And OED is now the owner of the Summerfell Energy Research Center.
Who is?
Office of Energy Development. OED.
Okay.
And then we have a new director there. Emily
Lasofsky. Emily, she goes by Emmy Lasofsky. And she is really dynamic. I think that she is the leadership that OED.
She retired from the feds recently, where she worked for the U.S. Senate on the appropriations side. So she brings a wealth of knowledge.
And she's from Utah. So she's thrilled to be back, and she's very energetic and really collaborative. We've already had Mike Vandenberg set up a really nice collaboration meeting just last week, I think, here at the Core Center with OED and UGS, and both groups talked about their programs. So I hope that we can really build that relationship out. And if both of these come through, we are going to be really busy. So.
Really exciting.
Just an FYI, I see that Riley has also joined us, as well as
Great.
Rick.
Awesome.
On the meeting. So anyway, we did write 5 building blocks. The geothermal was the only one that the governor put in his budget. It's the only one that I can openly in meetings advocate for now. Other things we will continue to work on behind the scenes. So,
Question
Yes.
about energy production in Utah. Do we know what portion of that stays in Utah and is used within the state?
I don't know the answer, but if you want to hang on to that question and ask Mike Vandenberg when he gets here, he might have a good answer. He does the governor's energy report every year. And he kind of summarizes everything from coal, oil, gas, and electricity.
Mhm.
Our challenge, I mean, you bring up a really good point, Neil. So almost all of the electrical power that we generate down in the energy corridor, down in the Milford area, is going out of state.
Yeah, and these newer sources, they're more expensive, and I don't know what kind of appetite Utahns have for higher energy prices.
I agree. And so the increased demand, and let me reflect. Where Rocky Mountain Power sees the increased demand going from 4 to 8 is in large part of these big data centers. They would love to come to Utah, and maybe Steph knows more about this than I do, but they can't get the power to come to Utah. I've heard the guys out in Duchesne and county out there complain that there are data centers that want to come and they have no place. They can't supply the power.
Do you know about the water?
Power and water, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Water's another one.
Those projects can't be cited on the Wasatch Front. I mean, they're really heavy water consumers, so,
Time will tell. And I think these, when I hear the governor talk about energy is going to be a focus, these are the type of issues that they're going to be tackling. You'll see a lot of energy stuff probably in the legislative session.
So this would be the year of energy, possibly.
Yeah, my understanding is they're backing away. They're not, you won't see a ton of legislation about water this year.
Sure.
They've spent a lot of money, they spent a lot of energy, no pun intended, on water last season. They want to see how those play out. That's what I'm hearing. Okay. Did I already do that forward? Okay. So I'm just going to go through our programs. I asked each of the program managers to give me a 1 or 2 paragraph summary. Some of them give me like a page and a half, you know. We try and parse it back a little bit. Carbon Safe, which is the carbon sequestration type project. We're involved in a number of projects mostly with the University of Utah through the Energy and Geoscience Institute, where they're the lead and we're a sub in one way or another. And so a couple of projects are in force and going on. So I think the one that recently got funded recently was the one by Price. And then there's also the one we've been working on for quite a while. It's down in southern Utah. And that's associated with the Iron Mountain, you know, the mining and the carbon sequestration they want to generate. The CO2 that they'll generate if they want to refine their ore down there. And then where do we store that? We spoke to the board about that before. I've told them that if we do collect seismic surveys, I want to interpret.
I have a question. Why does that first project have the word potash in it?
I don't know.
that might be I was
probably
Okay.
did that,
too.
sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
There's always something.
I was looking at that.
I don't think it's in the text.
It's not.
Okay.
Okay, no problem.
And that one, maybe I can just add a bit on that one. We signed a carbon sequestration lease with Urban. Obviously, they're the oil and gas operator on Drunkard's Wash, and I think they'll provide the match for the DOE grant. There has to be an industry match, so
Great.
so really exciting.
Good to know.
Yeah. And public disclosure, I own 40 acres in the field there.
Oh, interesting.
It has a well on it, so. So it just doesn't matter, public disclosure. Cover my, that I'm not.
Are they still doing the sequestration work in the iron mine? That we
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, that's what this research is on, the
That's,
second
which
project.
one's that one?
The
Second project.
Second one, okay.
So out west of there,
Oh, okay.
so we've been looking at the Navajo sandstone as one of the targets. There's a couple of other formations that we're looking at down in that area as potential targets. And I think one of the things they want to do, they propose, I think it's there's money in the grant to shoot 1 to 2 3D seismic surveys to better understand the structure. So that the big thing you worry about when you sequester CO2 is that you want to make sure there's not an escape route. You know, I was involved in a project through BYU with the guys in Illinois at the Archer Daniels Midland plant. And they were there, so we went out and shot a 3D survey around the plant because they were going to capture their CO2 and sequester it. So we had to make sure that we couldn't see. We spent a lot of time looking for faults on that 3D seismic survey. So, and if you don't know, my background is geophysics, and I love picking wiggles, as we say. I love it. If I could retire and just go pick seismic, I would do that. Phase 2, this is the project, I believe, out in the Uinta Basin that was recommended for funding. Contracts, the announcement went out, we could say something publicly, but negotiations are still underway. Like also, we already talked about the geothermal block. This is a kind of it's a tough story. We had the big fire, Silver King, down by Marysville. And I live right, that's where I live down in that area. You know, I'm about 15, 20 miles north of where the fire was. So we watched the hills, you know, we could see the fire from our house. And I also know guys that own mines down there, that they're trying to reopen the Deer Trail mine. After the fires, once it started to get to rain, and you now washed or burned away all the plants that held the soil in place, up in Deer Creek, which is that northernmost canyon, they started to have landslides coming in. And I was actually, do you know where Hoover, everybody know where Hoover's is? Oh, the Big Rock Candy Mountain? Yeah. Okay, everybody knows Big Rock Candy Mountain. So just a little bit farther down that same road, there's a little resort place called Hoover's, right there on the Sevier River. And you can raft and fish and camp and that kind of stuff. We went into Marysville one night for dinner on a Saturday, early dinner, and came back, and the whole canyon had flushed a bunch of dirt out across 89, rocks and boulders. So I actually just stopped and I talked to the guys, because as a geologist, how do you not stop at a big mudslide flowing across the You have to stop. And I got to meet the mayor of Marysville and talking to them, and we ultimately, they realized they were going to need some help to figure out where the burn scars were and what the change in topography, because there were big concerns that it was going to expose some of their water lines that were coming out of the mountains. They did not want the town's water supply. So we ultimately went down there, and Ben Erickson and his group and Hazards went and flew every one of those different colors as a drone survey that they shot to image each of the canyons. When that data was then shared with the engineering firms that were hired by Marysville to help design and define mitigation plans in the areas. So we were able to provide all of that drone work to make updated maps that looked, you know, to show the changes in topography. That was a pretty good project to go up and fly all that. So anyway, we did a big, nice piece of work there in the public interest down there in Marysville. I put this one up here, geologic map at Salt Lake City North. I don't know, anybody know about geologic maps in Salt Lake City? No? Yes, okay, a little bit. You do. Sure. These are important, you know, because this is where the people live. And so a lot of the updates was to where the faults are and where we know about the faults and where they are. And so I know that Adam McKean's been working on updating this map for like 10 years. So there's 2 maps in this area, but this is one of them. And they just got out, so they met, and Darlene helped lead an effort with us to meet with the county I think we're meeting, when are you meeting with the city?
We meet with Salt Lake City next week, so.
So we're making the circuits, make sure they see the maps and they know what the updated maps look like. We thought about just putting out a press to say we got this great updated map, but we thought our partners should know
First.
Make sure that we're all on the same page here, because there's some places on this map that could create some concern, or people might take like, well, wait a minute, you know, is this a hazard for me or what we're trying to do? So we just want to make sure that all of our partners are on board. So we put a stop on that. One of our mappers said, hey, time out. Before you do this press release, why don't we? And we said, you're right, you know? So I'm glad when our mappers speak up.
So this would affect maybe some building codes and things like that, I suppose.
Yeah, or locations.
It's, yes, not so much the codes, but there are some, the fault has been mapped through downtown. The specific areas, so I used to be the county geologist for Salt Lake County, so I did all of the land use development management work for the entire county-wide. And so when you have, you know, mapped faults through urban areas, especially some of the more sensitive downtown projects that you might have heard about, it's probably better to work one-on-one with, you know, the owners of some of the buildings and the city and the county to just make sure that they understand that if there's potential development or redevelopment of those areas, you know, that they have ordinances in place that specify not constructing over faults and that kind of thing. So, and we want to make sure that those are managed from the beginning of the project, you know, through the city and county's regulations, rather than after the fact, maybe when development plans have been agreed to, where they're like, oh, yeah.
Now emotions get in the way.
Yeah, you
So if
know,
we
they're
can-
like way down the road on a project design or
So if
something.
we can get out in front of it on our partners in these areas,
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
And make sure that they have current maps in place, and then, you know, those are their regulations and their management, right? That's not our role, but our role is to help make sure that they have the most current mapping and understand how our geologists got there with the mapping.
So
Are there other maps with similar issues?
We did just also publish the Fort Douglas quadrangle, which is just adjacent to this, and that's the piece that has the East Bench Fault that runs through the U. And Research Park and Fort Douglas are also being slated for very large redevelopment.
Okay.
So,
and this is
yeah,
downtown. So anyway, yeah, we want to be sensitive. We want to make sure they have the latest information. We spent a long time to try and get it right. Like, so we didn't just go out in a few weeks in the summer and map it and say, hey, here it is. But there was a lot of check and recheck and check and recheck to make sure we got it right. So, but a good example of reaching out to the community on this. Come on, the page down, there we go. In hazards, talk about faults, fault trace mapping and surface fault. This is up in Cache County. There's a report that came out here in the last few months as well. I know that, I believe Emily, yeah, she went up and held some meetings with the local leaders up there as well. And that's updated mapping, and we've worked with the local folks up there on this as well. So another great example, some good work out there. Other things that Hazards wrote out. Okay. Let me back up. I can't remember. Wasn't on my agenda, but I can't remember. This board knows that Adam McKean is now the program manager of Hazards. Did you already know that? Did we cover the last one? I'm sorry. It just dawned on me.
No,
If you didn't know that.
you sent out an email.
Okay, we did. That's right. Okay, I thought I did. I just can't remember if we talked about it. Okay, thanks. So Adam, you know, has put together some overviews of what we're working on, but there's a lot of hazard mapping going on around the state. I know they're working the severe fault, which is down where I live. And I know Adam Hiscock has been working that for several years now. He started down in southern Utah, because that goes all the way down to Arizona. He said he's gonna get almost to my house maybe this year. Then I'll know how bad it is where I live. A lot of people don't realize, a lot of people say, you know, well, we get a big earthquake down where I live in Severe. The answer is yes. It's one of the 5 largest earthquakes, they say, in Utah history was like 3 miles from my house. And I've seen various estimates because it was in 1921. And it's not like we had good ground motion sensors, you know, down there, but anywhere from a 5.8 to about a 6.2. So that's a big earthquake. So my house survived it. It was around then. Landslide mapping is underway. There was a new, the federal government passed legislation to fund to create national landslide maps. But the funding really didn't come out until the last year. Been around the legislation for multiple years. And finally got some funding, and we got a chunk of that funding, and we're actively working on that. We just submitted a grant that you guys approved to expand that work in the next round of funding that will come through the landslide mapping now. So in February, yeah, it's up there. It's in February. Remember the dates?
For
The earthquake working group.
I think 10th and 11th maybe.
It is 10th and 11th.
10th and 11th of February, we'll be hosting here a working group on Basin Range, and which is us. So it's a 2-day workshop. People come from all over the West.
It's every year, every other year, I think that we do
Every
this
year.
earthquake hazards.
Yeah, we
working
try and do
group.
it every year.
Yeah, so.
So we'll be hosting that here in February.
And do you want to talk about the second bullet there? I think you skipped that preservation grant.
Oh, yeah, I did. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's just important. So
Yeah, it is important. So we had prepared, you know, we've done a lot of data preservation over the years. And this year we prepared our proposals usual, and it got submitted, and we got a note on Monday morning that it was going to be rejected because the wrong file was attached to the application. And so it was missing a couple of key pieces of information. That's a big hit because for fiscal year 26, which begins July 1st, it was about between $900,000 and $1 million of work. Now, half of that we would have had to match. Half would have come from them. That was a big deal, and we won't get it. And this is, you know, this can impact people. We're hoping it won't. We're working on that. The landslide application you saw was expanded from what we were originally planning to try and compensate. So some of those people that are in hazard will continue on. So yeah, it was a hit. Thank you for that. Somehow I went right past that. That was a biggie. And we can point fingers. We're not doing that right now. We're dealing with that. But it affected some things we wanted to do. Some of the funds were for equipment here at the Core Center. So that won't happen. You know, we had something happen on a grant a year ago in the groundwater. Sometimes something gets missed. It's one of the reasons we've hired Ben DeLynn.
right.
We're going to start making sure that everything goes through. We've had program managers for a long time that have just done this on their own and done pretty dang well.
With their secretaries.
Huh?
With their secretaries.
Actually, business missions.
Yes, with their secretaries,
Yes, with their
meaning
assistants,
Cheryl
right?
and Cheryl and Star.
But Ben is very thorough.
So
Yeah, so we just kind of looked at our proposal preparation and submission system and are putting some checks in there so that, I mean.
So we don't have that happening.
Yeah, it was really an administrative error that's very unfortunate that, you know, that kind of thing can be backed up. So we need to make sure we're doing that. It's quite a large grant that crossed a couple of different programs. So, yeah.
Okay. Groundwater and wetlands. these folks are busy all the time. Seems to be, it's our fastest growing program. And like I said, there's EPA money out there. You know, we'll talk about budget. My hardest part in doing grants and getting federal money is finding match. That's my hardest thing. That is by far. The good thing about an EPA grant, it's about 75 from the EPA, 25 match. Most US geological survey maps are 50-50 or one to one. Some DOE grants, you know, they vary, but match is the tough part. We'll talk about more of that a little bit later. Wetland data, yeah, story map for projected. I'm trying to think which ones.
Have you guys looked at any of our story maps online? They're a really fun and engaging way to present information. So there's a couple of them. There's a great one for the Bonneville Salt Flats, you know, the salt crust out of the speed racing area. They're doing one for wetlands that
Which is right here.
we've been reviewing. Yeah, it's really looking good.
So these are coming along. This is a way to get information out to the public. The one thing I hear from people all the time is how good our portal is. I had someone call me the other day and say, hey, we rely on this. Oh, I was talking to one of our state senators and his son, who's like a mining engineer, he goes, he uses your stuff almost every day.
Yeah, I use the online geologic map like, all the time.
Yes,
So,
great.
So, you know, and again, for Neil's benefit, a couple of years ago, we moved that out of into its own program, our data management, because it was just a couple of people. And our data, the amount of data we put out has just grown exponentially. And to keep up with how do we do it and deliver it, we had to create another program focused on data management. So anyway, so yeah, these story maps, they're there to go look at. You want to go see them.
I know.
Do you want to see?
I already did.
Watershed estimation, the Cape Ground, Great Salt Lake watershed.
This was
There's a lot of money still coming through the Great Salt Lake.
I don't know if you
That's the bottom line. We're doing a lot of the groundwater monitoring to see what role groundwater plays in the replenishment of water to the Great Salt Lake. You know, we've got wells. You go out, drive along Antelope Island, the Causeway, you'll see we got like 4 wells. And they're like 50 feet and 100 feet at different depths to kind of measure the groundwater flows there. Mapping and paleo, the new proposal, you should have seen that also, came across in the grant proposal. We got that submitted on time and done properly. It's a big source of funding. These are the 50/50s. What Stefan has proposed and his group are 7 new 7.5-minute quads. And this year we're beginning our first map on the Navajo Nation, which is pretty cool. And so this project's got 2 more proposals to work on Navajo Nation land, so which will be cool. So this is a big first for us. These are areas that just really haven't had much map, and they're holes on our state maps. But we have a member of the mapping committee, and of which Becka is the chair, who is from the Navajo Nation. Actually lives in Arizona, right? Or is it New Mexico? Can't remember.
I'm not sure because I haven't met that person.
Okay, yeah, I met her yet.
Yeah,
Yeah. Crystal's her name.
she hasn't been to the regular
But she
meetings.
proved, no, okay. But she has met with our mapping folks when we go down to the nation and has made the introductions to the local tribal leaders to gain access. So that's been a great connection to have. 2 more 30x60s. This Dutch John, that's when we kind of stopped in. Remember that on our field trip? We stopped in the Dutch John area. That's the one that Doug Sprinkle's been trying to get done. So that's the goal, is to finish that off. And try, yeah, the 1 to 500,000 scale is that map right there. I don't know if you've heard me say this before. I know they've been taking comments for the last several years on corrections. And I think they've got 400 comments so far. I mean, it's a lot of them. But you know, when you try and take a 7.5 minute quad and condense it to that.
You can't just shrink it down on the copier.
That's about, yeah, that doesn't work. And they're gonna do, I think stratigraphic studies is on the next page. It's one more. I know they want to do, oh, there it is, yeah. Proposing major stratigraphic studies. This is work that will leverage off of Jim Kirkland stuff. Because he's done a ton of stratigraphic mapping in his hunt for dinosaurs. So this will be updated. Stefan's group is really to be commended. They have changed the workflow. And, you know, last year was the first year we completed all of our projects without asking the feds for a no-cost extension. Well, that's a big deal. I don't know about you, that is a huge, huge deal. And so, and a lot of that comes through their focus on how do we change our workflows, how do we change our review process, how do we make it more efficient. So they've done a really good job. GEMS, which is the federal government's schema for entering GIS data. They have a certain format they want it in, they've developed it for the feds. They call it GEMS, it's an acronym. And they're working on other national projects as well. So they're actively engaged. Paleo, I was trying to find a picture of this, but Don DeBlue, I spent a ton of time the last couple of summers in Capitol and Canyonlands, which interestingly is one of the national parks that has had very little paleo work done in it. And so with funding, he's been able to get into the park and hike back in. They've made some amazing discoveries, a lot of trackway work. A lot of trackway work where you have an overhang and you see the track bed above you. You look up. So he's done some really good work getting out there.
I think there's photos of the swim track assemblage in the survey notes. So it's
I was trying to find one yesterday and I couldn't find it.
Oh, really? Oh,
I
it's in
should have
survey
asked you,
notes.
but
I think it's in survey notes.
yesterday was a very, very involved day.
You know,
Had all kinds of stuff going on. I had not seen this term until, I don't know who made that point.
It sounds like a Kirkland name.
Anyway, definitely some of your swim tracks.
Is it in this issue
I don't
or is it?
I don't
in the
see
other
it
issue?
either.
It might be in the last month's issue or last round.
I think it's in the previous one.
Yeah. Was it in the previous one?
Yeah.
I review them and then they come out, you know, so yeah, maybe check the last survey notes or it's on our website. It's a really.
There's some good pictures that Don put in there. Anyway, you already met Michelle. She's got new t-shirts in, we've got the puzzles where she is really, I debated whether that word clearancing, is that a verb?
No.
Clearance.
I'm not sure.
Maybe
To,
clearing out.
I almost tried to rewrite it. I almost tried to rewrite these notes when I got them.
I looked it up and I tried to think of something else too, but I'm just like, that's what she put, I'm just gonna leave it.
And that's what I said. I just said, I'm gonna leave this. The point is that she's really working hard to clear out stuff that's been sitting on shelves forever.
You had t-shirts in?
New t-shirts
Yeah, we
are
have
in.
new
Good,
t-shirts.
I tried to get some for Christmas, they were out.
We even have a women's shirt.
I know, we got one a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, they made.
It's supposed to be even a better ink or printing than before.
Like won't peel off in the dryer kind of thing. So, yeah, stop off at the bookstore. She was a great hire. She has really just taken the.
She
ball
has a
and run
retail
with it.
background,
So,
and so she has embraced the job,
she really has.
and that I love. She's passionate about it. So we'll get the national park patches here soon, and whenever you bring like an ATV in from out of state, you're supposed to get a permit to drive it on lands. And we're working to get those permits available in our bookstore. It comes through the, I think it's the recreation handles OHV, I think. So we've been working with them to get them.
Rick Chestnut said swim tracks in January 2023 survey notes.
Oh, that's a year ago.
I think he means, what,
Well, maybe the January 2nd.
Yeah, I read that section because it was of interest to me because I love Capitol Reef National Park and somebody mentioned that on the call here, so I just plugged that in the notes.
A year ago. But he's been out there the last several summers. Okay, shifting to GIO. Oh, we changed the bookstore hours, I should say that, to open at 9 now instead of 10. During the pandemic, we dialed things back and felt like we could reopen it back up. So we finally did that. GIO, we had our Earth Science Week. Jen Milliard heard about that. And every year we run a field trip for all of our non-geoscience people in the UGS. And so they all went, did you go out on that one?
no, I think it was away.
Yeah, I might have been out. I just don't even get invited because they're trying to keep it with just, did you go, Patrick?
I think I was on this one, yeah.
So this time they went to the Salt Flats and Silver Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool stuff. Cool
Good.
stuff.
Again, trying to keep our non-science staff engaged in science. That's really what it's about. Again, a bunch of different articles in our survey notes, which you all get anyway. I think this probably covers that. Data management, these are the guys that are running hard. And it's stuff, a lot of the stuff they do is not stuff that you and I will ever see. But if they didn't do it, we would never see what we do. If you know what I mean. You know, I spent a long time in the software side of oil and gas. And there's a lot of behind the scenes work that makes it look right. You know, sometimes you got to rip out the database or the engine, the visualization you're using because the technology changes and you got to make the complete change of the technology that makes it look good on your screen without the user knowing that change was made. And that's what they've been doing. So they've been updating and changing. So I can't tell you what terms like Firebase mean, but I can tell you that those are the things in the background that make it go. And I think that's where we were at for a break. Is that right?
Can I ask
9:30?
one quick
Yes.
question? What about the earthquake early warning system that was not approved by the legislature, but might be next time?
The governor did not put it in his budget, in his proposed budget
Oh,
recommendation for next year. However, to that end, I met in December. I've been working with the gentleman by the name of Gordon Larson, who is the liaison for the governor with the federal, like the House and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So he arranged a meeting, I asked for and he arranged a meeting with our federal legislators. Because to really make earthquake early warning go, we need specific language for the U.S. Geological Survey to expend funds and time to work with us to implement a system. So we have I met with them, presented to them. I shouldn't say it wasn't just myself. Steve Bowen participated in the call and the folks, Keith Coper and his group from the University of Utah seismograph stations. They met also on the call and we provided them with language that has been used by other states to drive this sort of funding. So we're doing that.
There was a big article in Tribune about a week ago on the early warning system.
Yeah.
Probably was part of that.
Yeah. So we're driving it still. If I can get the feds to step in, we're gonna need them to do it because they did all the work. They did all the work for Shake Alert, which covers California, Oregon, and Washington. So they need that. What was interesting, there was about a magnitude 7 off the coast of Oregon. 2 months ago. It was early December, if I remember right. And one of the articles that was actually posted on the West Coast was that the shake alert system worked. And the notices went out, and it was about 70 miles offshore. But I think it turned off a number of facilities, that protected life and limb. But the whole article was bragging about how the shake alert system had actually worked. So I shared that article in my meeting with our federal partners, and saying this is why we need to do this. We also got, we have a new senator in John Curtis, replacing Romney. And a member of his staff reached out to us in the last week, looking for things that they could help us work on, which I thought was really cool. And so one of the topics we shared with them was earthquake early warning. We talked about continued support for funding of the state MAP program. Was another topic that we talked about. So we've shared some ideas with our new elected officials. So we're still chasing it.
Yeah.
I am not letting it go.
Okay.
And to that end, it's not on our agenda here, but do you don't mind if I talk about
No, please.
seismic safety?
Yeah.
Last year's legislature, you may remember, chose not to renew the Seismic Safety Commission.
Right.
And so it, as of January 1st, ceased to exist as an entity. There are efforts afoot by a number of parties, of which Darlene is a huge driver on this, and passionate about, as I am, to find a way to bring it back with a different focus. We met with, over the summer, I met with a number of different legislators. And the one thing we heard repeatedly was, we need a group like this to be focused on what happens on day two. What happens on the day afterwards? Is the infrastructure going to be survived, and does it work? So we've been working hard with current, or past, I should say, past members, because the commission doesn't exist now. Envision Utah, ourselves, some folks from DEM, Division of Emergency Management, to rewrite a chart of what that focus might be. How do we preserve the infrastructure and economic recovery? So we're looking, so you may still see some legislation this year that would be part of that issue. Goes back to this earthquake. So we are involved in that as well. Did I leave anything out, Darlene?
No, I mean, I think the main goal is to, not ask the legislature to reauthorize a seismic safety commission when they weren't happy with the commission's focus and objectives. And so, the listening process of that is to really kind of reimagine the commission, rebrand it. So Utah Commission for Earthquake Preparedness, URM and schools are important, but what the legislature, I think, wants to hear more about is infrastructure hardening and resilience. And, I think most of us would like the business community to, be able to quickly recover. That's our economic engine for the state. I think that is something that the legislature will help us with. So a little bit of realignment on the members of the commission, and, a different focus, rebranding, and then also a mandate for a strategic plan for the commission that has actionable goals every year, because we really, we're running out of time, right? We are just burning down the clock on the earthquake timeline. We don't really have 20 more years to, we have to be really, really motivated and really get the word out to people and businesses, and work on our infrastructure so that we can, try to make it through an earthquake.
So there are a lot of moving parts on this one. One of which is that the Division of Emergency Management's, their chief champion, John Cross, was elected to Davis County as a Davis County commissioner. So he resigned effective January 6th, I think, from DEM. So we're lacking a champion over there. And so we're working on, those are aspects that we're working on to make it happen. We were supposed to meet with our boss at DNR on Monday, and he got waylaid with legislative stuff. This is that time of the year. But we're, it's a very active effort. And earthquake early warning is certainly a part of that.
And after we meet, I'll just add one thing to Bill's comments. After we meet with Joel and Nathan, if, you know, we have a little bit of a strategy around this, if that's green lighted, we will reach out to you, our board, just to help us really promote and push this through. We could really use your engagement on that. So, thank you.
So
In
stay,
advance, stay tuned.
stay tuned. So I'm at break time and man, we are within 5 minutes. Our schedule, that's pretty dang good. So, okay for a break?
Russ here too, so.
Okay, Riley and who else was it? Rick? See you in 15.
Special
And
donuts.
we have a Cookie Monster license.
I was wondering what that was.
See the little Cookie Monster? One of my employees said that to me like yesterday or something. Over the weekend, I think. I've created this culture that you gotta send pictures of license plates now. Every month staff meetings, I have to pick a few pictures.
All right.
They're kind of fun.
A lot going on out there in the world of geology,
Yes.
legislation.
Okay. Oh.
No, when I was a county geologist. used to go-
Well.
Looks like you're right on schedule.
No, we are. I'm like.
Good job.
Use those.
I'm just gonna. I'm gonna spend a few minutes just kind of talking about, I said I'd talk about where we are and how we got here. And then I'll turn it back over to Russ. He's got one slide. He wants to talk about his spreadsheet that you guys received. So I'll turn that over to him. Probably in October, Russ pointed out to us that we went from a small surplus to a shortfall in December, or not December, but in October he noticed it. And this number, maybe he'll have a different number than I have in here. Okay, but at the end of November, the forecast is we might be short about $273,000, if I remember that right. And so we went up, I'll talk about what steps we're taking on the next page, but there's a number of things that contribute to it. One is that mineral release, and Mike, are you still on board with 1.6? Okay. I know that moves every month, each paycheck or each mineral release royalty payment. But the legislature, for whatever reason, appropriated to us like 2.391 billion, which we won't ever see. And for a long, in October, we were thinking that might be 1.5. So we picked up about 100,000 there in our forecast, which will help.
Why is there such a discrepancy in what they allocate to you and really what it truly is?
And so we've done a couple of things to help ameliorate that. The discrepancies in the numbers they do and that we get. One was last year, and I say last year, in the legislative session in early 2024, and effective July 1st of 2024. All the mineral lease funds will now be deposited into our restricted account. We will not have to ask for an appropriation, so to speak, of that money, which was really a huge burden because Mike, as amazing as he is, and being often within 10% or less of what it actually is, we still had to forecast it, and then we had to ask for an appropriation each year. And some years were on, some years were not. It was always a problem. So we decided to have that money deposited directly to our restricted account. And now we'll just have a standing appropriation of, at least for the foreseeable future. We can change that each year, but we've set it to be 1.7. And so if we only spend 1.5 of it, that money will stay in the restricted account and does not go back to the state government. We get to keep the money. So if we can budget ourselves to spend less than we think is going to go on there, it's an opportunity for us to build our rainy day account. So that was one. And so the other part of that restricted account was several years ago we created, which we never had this restricted account, but we created it by moving severance tax funds, which we had never gotten, into this restricted account. So those are two things. So anyway, we're dealing with it. We're trying, and we've seen this coming, and the creation of the restricted account will help us, and I'll explain how it's going to help this year in a moment. Another place where we really struggle is we've gotten a lot of federal funding and finding match, so we probably grew too fast by taking federal funds and not having enough match to get there. That's a reality. So for the coming year or years, we've asked, do not ask for any more money than you've got current match to give. We can't expect that we're going to be able to grow match money. That's a reality. We had some good years. Now we got to deal with that. This one, so the bullet point only changed on this slide, not the rest of it. This is a bug that bothers me. The governors, the legislature and the governor implemented pay for performance, and they appropriate money each year for you to pay to give out money called pay for performance based on your performance rating as an employee. But they appropriate money to you, but they only appropriate new money that comes to my agencies, only money tied to general funds. So general funds account for between 30 and 40% of our operating budget. Which means that I only get So say they give me $100,000. They say you have $100,000 to spend on pay for performance, and that's what you should be giving to employees. The state's only giving me $38,000. The rest of that money, I gotta go find it. And they appropriate it to mineral lease based on that 2.3, a percentage to that. They appropriate a percent of the severance taxes, and they appropriate it to federal grants. You know, so they divvy up the other 62% across all the other sources of our income. But it's not any new money. And our federal grants, I can't charge my federal grant more money than what I was given, because some agencies get block grants, and it's easier to do that as a block grant. We get grants, you know, we write a grant for state map, and state map writes says, okay, we're gonna have 3 senior geologists working 270 hours on this project at this rate. We can build in like a 3% change maybe from year on, year out, but it's really hard because we are locked in to deliver product based on those amount of hours at given a certain rate. Just because the state tells me I gotta give it, you know, 3% or 5% raise, there's no money there to do that. So this last year, money that we would have carried forward from last fiscal year into this was diminished because we had to dip into that to cover what we were told to pay out to our employees. But we weren't given funds to do it. Now, not all state agencies have this problem, but we are heavily funded by other agencies. Either other agencies or federal grants or mineral lease or severance taxes. And so we have to dig into that. And so we to cover this, we asked to take out of our restricted account $700,000. Well, not to take out. We asked for the ability to spend up to $700,000 of what's in our restricted account for this fiscal year to cover our difference. We should be in great shape to do that for this fiscal year. Not that. But when we had to write a building block, and I put one of the reasons pay for performance. This is a public meeting, I'm gonna say this anyway. I was told to take that reason out because I might get called in and get audited for complaining about it, but I said, bring it on. I'd love to explain to my legislature why this isn't really working for us. So I don't know where we'll see what'll happen. But we will take $700,000. Well, we won't take, we've asked again for permission to spend up to $700,000 out of our restricted account, which should more than cover our shortfall and still allow some money to stay in the restricted account. So that's what we're doing. And the good news is, the restricted account is now doing exactly what we had hoped it would do, which is take that roller coaster out that we've been going through. So we had that buffer there. So I think great thing.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. So what else are we doing? We're trying to, save money in a lot of ways. We mentioned Jeff Quick retired. Mike's not going to replace him right away. There's a salary savings there. Where we can get salary savings, we're going to do that. We're really taking a hard look at any capital expenditures, and if an out-of-state travel is not funded by a grant, taking a hard look at those sorts of things. I had opportunities to do 2 big trips this year. One was to go to Peru with the state but it would cost $5,000 out of our budget. And another one was what was that one too? It was Hawaii, a geothermal, and it was another $5,000. And I said, no, we sent Christian instead. We were going to send Christian and me, and I said, I'll take me out. I'll let the science and smart guys go. So those are the sorts of things that we're doing to really try and also don't write new proposals that expand how much match you got to come up with. That's another biggie. So last thing we're working really hard to do is our new grant analyst, Ben, took a pretty hard look, and you can correct me on the numbers if I get this wrong, but historically, we don't fully bill out grants as they sit in our original budgets. So if we say we're gonna have $1 million grant, we don't always necessarily, we might get somewhere between 50 and 80% of that build out in a year. So we've asked our folks to make sure we really make a concerted effort to fully build that grant money. So those are things that we're trying to do to bring us back in line. One other thing we're working on doing is, you may remember we did this something called Senate Bill 133 back in 2021, which created the restricted account. And on the next slide summarizes it, but we're gonna ask to change the percentage of money that comes out of that. And this is probably a better way to do it. So when the law was first written, we would get 2.5% of the first $50 million collected from severance taxes across oil, gas, and mining in the state. 1% of the next 50 million. Now we've never crossed that 50 million yet since this bill was written. But then it's an aggregate, it's a 3-year aggregate average. And then 0.5% of the next 100 million. So we haven't hit steps 2 and 3 at all yet. But I am working with the original author of the bill to say, can we change those percentages? Because when we wrote them, we weren't sure what they should be even. So some fine tuning is okay. When we have the support of the fiscal analysts in the legislature, we believe that, we've talked to them about this. I was on the phone yesterday for about an hour with the senator who wrote this bill, and he's happy to run a new bill to change that amount. And so we'll see. It means they'll probably have to take it from somebody else, but if he's told me, because if we don't ask, the answer will be no. So we're going to ask. And so whether that turns out to be 5% instead of 2.5, maybe it'll be 4. So if you run the numbers based on, say, last year's revenue, the last year's 3-year aggregate number, it would change the amount of money coming into us. At 4%, it would change by about $700,000. And if you do 5%, it's about 1.2. So we ran the numbers, looked at them. Russ has been a big part helping me make sure that I understood this right. But that's what we're asking for those percentage changes. I don't know if it'll happen, but it's something we're going to do. And we have the support of our Downard leadership as well. So I've got a fair amount of support working our way up to the line. And that takes me to Russ. Unless there's questions for me. And you want to use that spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
So do you want me to drive it? Or do you
Nope, I'll do it.
You want me to get out of the way? I'll get out of the way. I'll make this bigger on the back. You do what you gotta do. I don't know how to make it bigger. All right. I know how to change the scale.
So here, halfway through the year, hopefully those in the back can see this. Okay, this is our funding profile. You can see our general funds right here. And then some more general funds for one time for critical mineral study. And then Bill has talked about our restricted account, our UGS restricted account, mineral lease. Here's our mineral lease number, which is, we always talk about it being very volatile. As Bill mentioned, that will not go away, but we'll just see one line. We'll see that those funds will flow into our restricted account, this fund 1137. A small amount for this LEDA, this land exchange distribution. And then we have some variable funding here, which is set by program managers. We are appropriated the authority from the legislature, but things may seem a little different as far as what dedicated credits are, as we, groundwater may have a study contract with Rockville, a groundwater study. So we're providing service to the community, and they're going to, it's a negotiated fee off of this contract, and we're going to collect off of that. So it's collection revenue. And kind of down the line, the federal funds is federal funds directly with the federal agency. Transfers is from another another state agency or from state entity like a university. And then non-lapsing, this is the amount that we carried over from 2024 to 2025. The number for 2024 non-lapsing was 2,056,000. And then 2025, we have a beginning balance of this 11,192. So this is how we look revenue wise. This is our expenditures that we have. Big payroll personnel budget, and then just some other funding, other expenses as program managers tell us what they're going to be spending their grant funds on or for their program. So as we kind of look through this is a little awkward, so my apologies. So this is kind of what we look at as far as, you know, the end of the year, as far as what that budget, but remember it has that 2.3 number in mineral lease. Then we hit reality and we say, okay, so mineral lease is going to be projected at 1.6 million. So it's about an $800,000 reduction from this 2.3. So how do we look at that and be able to manage our budget with that kind of projection, with that volatile funding source? Difficult. Then we have some other pieces in here that will come in as supplemental, 91,000 for some general fund, another $10,000 or so, I believe, from our restricted account, and $400 from here. So another $100,000 for pay for performance that we're owed for 2025. That our finance director, our department finance director has told us we should plan for. In the governor's budget, we just kind of plug in the numbers, and the legislature will do their thing as they move that process along. We have $700,000 here. The bill talked about our building block. This is we had to put this in with the rest of the DNR priorities to make this ask for this one-time funding from our UGS restricted account. So this is more or less original budget. Then we have some revisions, and then this is the operating budget that we're working off of right now. So 16.5 million of revenue, and then expenditures we have no adjustments. So look at this 1.4. Remember right here in this 1.1, there are some dedicated projects and earmarks that we need to keep in mind that Waterville Salt Flats and Great Salt Lake, these projects or that funding that were one-time funds from years ago that we're just carrying over. That work is carrying over from year to year. We're spending down those balances. So halfway through the year, this is our revenue as we look at what is the general fund and all these other fixed funding sources to cover our expenses. And this is what we've collected. This is our original budget right here. So dedicated credits for 412,000, and we've budgeted, and we've collected 100,000. So halfway through the year, we've collected $100,000. So build season works as you're out in the field and you have build season fall and spring, summer, and so winter, not much happens there. So that would pick up here in the fall, and kind of talk about each one of those as well. So this is just kind of working our way through budgeting, modified budget, actual expenditures, actual revenue collections. So right here is the spreadsheet. Everyone received this document too, I believe, or your package. So we look at forecast. We're fixed general fund. We don't think that anything's going to be taken away from us. So we plan for everything. We're gonna spend it all. We're gonna collect it all. We're not gonna lose any of this other funding. When we get down here to variable funding, then we start as we going through our operating cycle, our budgeting cycle. Are we going to be able to meet? Are we going to be able to collect on what we said we're going to collect? As far as the program manager puts together their work schedule for their 30 grants that they have that they're working on with the staff of 15 people, how does that look across this portfolio, for their piece? And then, feedback, they've told us that they're not going to be able to. They're going to be $280,000 short of what they're going to be able to collect. Where are they going to charge that time to? Probably general fund is what it'll be covered. Everyone will be paid. All the bills will be paid. So that's just part of the budgeting cycle. So as far as our projection goes, on what we bring in and what we spend, Bill had talked about personnel. For what we have here, we have some positions. Some people have retired. We have some people that have left. So there'll be some cost savings there from this original amount. Clear across the, maybe we're waiting to fill a vacancy or something like that in some of the programs. So we'll generate some cost savings here. There will be, as this second line here is in-state travel, critical part of our work to do field work and to be able to reimburse for hotels and for meals and everything else that goes into in-state travel. So projection for the year is this 1.1. That involves this $700,000 here, which we haven't received yet. It's part of the legislative session. It involves this $91,000, this $100,000, for pay for performance that we'll receive for 2025. And that's also part of the session. So this looks like a pretty good number, this 1.1. Big number, but remembering that about $590,000 as far as projected needs to be here at the end of the year balance. So if you take $700,000 off of this, we're in the hole about $200,000. End of the year projection, is this 1.1 and it's broken down here, 37,000 for Great Salt Lake, 287 for Bonneville Salt Flats, 262 for critical minerals. End of the year balance. The difference from the 1.1, is 553,000. So you take $700,000 out, we're in the negative. So do we need that $700,000? Yes, we need that $700,000. Do we need the whole thing? No, we need $100,000. We need $200,000 to, for this projection. This is what we know. This is our best estimate today that we know. So good decision as far as making the request. Glad that the governor prioritized that, our need and in his budget, and we'll make our best case to the legislature as we put this in front of them to include for our needs in the fund to meet the our mission for UGS. So any questions?
I have a question. The fund from which the 700,000, the restricted fund is coming from, how much is left in the fund, or does it even work?
So the $700,000 ask is based upon what the fund had at the end of 2024. So that was kind of the maximum amount that we could ask.
Okay.
So that's really the only reason why we asked, just to kind of play on the safe side.
Yeah.
Bill talked about a bunch of stuff that we're doing as far as restricted spending, overtime, those types of things to kind of control costs.
Okay.
If you take that money out of the restricted account, you basically move it, and then you end up with a surplus, can they sweep that?
Doesn't sweep, it just stays in the.
Okay, good.
What we're doing is ask for authorization to spend
up to
Okay, good.
700,000. We only spend what we need.
Okay, all right.
That was my question
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. We all ask that question.
Yeah.
Good thing is that because it's in the restricted account, it just stays there.
Yeah, so we want to have, we need a balance to go into next year. The projection is this number here. But these funds can't cover our deficit. So even if we took the $700,000 out here, we would have a positive number, but we just can't cover our deficit with restricted earmark funds. So that's where we are.
All right. Okay, thank you, Russ.
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah. So like that critical minerals, if you may remember, the legislature approved 400,000, which we would spend over 3 years on critical minerals research, for example. Bonneville Salt Life, that's what's left of like $1 million that we got several years ago. We've been slowly spending that. The Great Salt Lake is in the groundwater program. Okay. So, so this is just a summary, I think, of what you just heard from Russ. Did you have a oh, Russ left, okay.
He's in lead and dirty training.
Yeah, he's in some training that stays off. So this is a concern here, and we mentioned it earlier when we talked about it. This will impact fiscal year 26. This begins in July. The not getting the data preservation funding. So that will be a challenge for us. The good news, well, the bad news is we won't have $1 million spent, but the good news is that if we don't have to come up with the match, you know, there may be some ways to help deal with that. So, and you already saw our other ways of how we're trying to change that funding mix. And I think this is where we have Christian, Eugene, and Mike. Are up next. Are you guys ready to go? Sure. So if you've not met, Mike Vandenberg in the back, Program Manager for Energy Metals, Christian Hardwick, fellow geophysicist, makes him a good guy. On geothermal, and Eugene, who's also working on geothermal. Another good guy, I shouldn't say. You have to be a geophysicist to be a good guy.
I've got a geophysics degree too.
Oh, man.
You
Probably-
really? I didn't know that.
All right. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
That's why he's so smart.
I'm just a lowly geologist. I gotta upload slides. I've got a couple of handouts that you can.
Do you have some slides I can upload?
Yeah, I'm gonna start this. So take one of each and then just pass it down.
There's a problem with this truck.
So by the time we meet again, we should know which way the request for the increase in severance has gone, right? We can get that increase from 2.5% to 4%, or ideally 5%.
We'll know by March 7th.
So by the time we meet again, and then by then we'll also be farther down the line and we can look at our budget outcome for FY26. Which, you know, we won't have the same amount of funds in our restricted account, and our carry forward will be much less. So FY26 is going to be a little bit of a delicate thing. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to make sure our guys online can still see this, right? Looks like it.
Everything still looks good on my end.
Okay, I see it. Okay.
So the two handouts, one of them you might recognize, it's the geothermal fact sheet that we we produced a year ago, 2 years ago. And then the text page, Bill. That text page is sort of a high-level summary of our geothermal research building block request. Because there's a lot of details that go into sort of what we are proposing, and more than what we could put on a slide. But we felt it was important for you to be able to kind of see that whole process, and that we're not just kind of shooting from the hip. This is something that's thought out. Okay. You just want to be my
I can do that.
slide
You
person?
want to sit here? You want to do it?
Sure.
Oh, wait, you can.
I get out of the way. I'm easy.
I'll come sit up here.
Tell me to leave.
We're not gonna use a podium and you have to do musical chairs.
Okay, my name is Christian Hardwick. I'm a geophysicist. I've been with the survey since 2011. I'm also the geothermal section manager, so I kind of look over our geothermal and geophysics folks, and help manage the projects they're going. So just brief overview of what I'm going to present to you today. We're going to look at kind of what UGS has done with geothermal over the years, why geothermal is important in Utah, our most recent efforts, research needs, and then comes in the building block request. And if there's time, we can look at some of the UGS tools that we've applied in the past and what we look to do in the future. So first and foremost, and I think that this is pretty significant. Since 1963, we've been involved in over 150 scientific publications involving geothermal resources. And that's on local scale, regional scale. It could be statewide. It could be, Great Basin wide. It's a lot of work. And even out of just those, the three sources. So this is, published through UGS, GRC, which is Geothermal Resources Council, and the Stanford Geothermal Workshop. That's just those three bits. So we're probably looking, in excess of 200 to 300 total publications that we worked on. But it's a lot to kind of account for. That map figure is just sort of what I call a geographic bibliography to kind of show where those studies are throughout Utah. And you can see, if you're familiar with geothermal in Utah, we're kind of focused in the severe thermal belt, where you see that cluster of points kind of in the central western part of the state. Most recently, this month, actually, we've got the survey notes that was led by my colleague Eugene in the back, focused on geothermal. So that's a nice sort of bit of information that's, you can hold in your hand, you can pass around, for others to look at. So we're glad that we're able to get that pushed through this month prior to the start of the legislative session. Importance of data, we keep going back to this. And sort of what the service that UGS provides, for many things, but in particular with geothermal, we actually sit down at the base of this pyramid, foundational data and research. And in the top left is a nice quote there. Good policy requires good data. That was by USGS Director Dave Applegate when he paid a visit to Utah last year, I believe, early last year.
June.
June.
June of this year. Or last year, I guess it's last year.
Last year. 2025.
6 months.
Yeah, we're 2025.
Basically, the reason that we've got 150 plus publications, probably hundreds in total, is because we provide that foundational data here at UGS. So we're a group that others look to first to help them collect that data to kind of build upon and move forward. This is just a quick summary of sort of my time and my involvement at UGS, starting at 2011 up to the current time. Something that you might notice is looking at our total funding, so total projects, so dollars that are coming from federal or state for the full project, not necessarily to UGS. You're looking at almost $350 million just over the course of 15 years. For geothermal, this is just geothermal. The total grant funding that UGS has received for, staff time, travel, just sort of our tasking in general, amounts to about $4.5 million of that total. And if you look closely, you can pick out, there are, a few state
funded grants in there, but they totaled to somewhere around $300,000 out of our 4.5 million, and then compared to that 350. So we're not very well, I'll say it this way, we're well funded federally, but we can use more support on the state level. Brief kind of snapshot of geothermal and in Utah, you all can read, so I'll let you read those points on the side, on the left-hand side, right-hand side. Really the main focus for geothermal is that power generation. So higher temperature resources. And then on the far right, you've got direct use applications. So I always like to point out that we shouldn't always be pushing for that pie in the sky for electrical generation. We have a lot of geothermal applications that do not require generating electricity. So maybe we can reduce our reliance on electricity by making use of the direct use bits. This isn't that figure in the handout. This just kind of shows our primary geothermal resources in the state of Utah that we are looking at. Across the very top there, you've got the potential for these resources, including the capacities for the ones that are developed. So that would be hydrothermal systems that are developed in Utah. That's Glendale, Cove Fort, Thermo Hot Springs. You're only around 73 megawatts electric that's being, capacity, it's not what's produced. Forge, which is sort of in the center of that figure, those are the EGS, enhanced geothermal or engineered geothermal, where you come in fractured reservoirs. Statewide potential, that one is pushing almost 50 gigawatts. And these numbers are based off of an MIT report and an NREL report from the past 5 to 10 years. And then deep sedimentary basins on the far side to the left on that figure. I don't want to get hung up on the numbers here, but I always kind of find it interesting to look at sort of geothermal energy in a different perspective, because it might not make sense to think about megawatts thermal. We can look at electric, but then what does that mean as far as dollars? So if we take sort of the average residential electricity cost, which is 13 cents per kilowatt hour, that's over the last year, we can then step forward into how much that actually results in power for homes and also dollars. So for each of those resources, you're looking starting from around, just shy of $1 billion for hydrothermal resource. EGS, bumps up to almost $55 billion annually. So that would be, consumers or users are paying that to utility companies if that resource is fully developed. Not saying that it will be, but just to kind of keep that number in your mind. Those are the dollars that are attached to that electricity. Research necessity, we're kind of sitting in a primary or prime location here in Utah, in the western US. That map, that pretty map in the bottom there at the left, just warmer colors show higher values of surface heat flow, which is usually an indicator or an initial indicator for geothermal potential. So you can see sort of the warmer areas really sit where we are, and then it ends up being about half of the state of Utah, which is the basin range physiographic province. Map over here on the left-hand side is sort of some of the work that we've done, and then different data points for where we have potential and other aspects. This figure is on the back side of your that geothermal fact sheet if you want to look closer at it, minus the pink polygon. The only other point I want to make with this slide is that with that Fervo development, which is right next to the Forge EGS research site, they're looking at doing 400 megawatts electric development. That's only going to bump us as far as the statewide development compared to the potential. It'll bump us from 0.1% to 1%, 400 megawatts. BLM has approved up to 200 or 2,000 megawatts for Fervo to expand in that area, but we'll see kind of what happens in the next couple of years. The Fervo plant should come online in 2026. then full production, I think, in 28. Ongoing research, I won't spend a lot of time on these slides, but just sort of an overview of the things that UGS is currently working on, or we have just wrapped up. This would be in the last, 3 or 4 years. Forged, EGS, that Forge is now funded at over $300 million. And that's, so far, we're at year number 10 from when we originally started working on that project. UGS was a critical and key partner for that initial phase, or the competitive grant phase, to secure the Forge site in Utah. Ingenious, this is a project that is managed by Eugene. The PI is University of Nevada, Reno. They're looking at a regional scale, and you kind of see different data layers that are shown over on the right-hand side here. That project is due to wrap up in 2026, and it's more of a methods-based approach, trying to prove out how do we fine-tune our methods to figure out which systems are ideal and how to locate them best. Deep sedimentary basins is one of the other plays. Black Rock Desert, so from Delta down to Kanash, that's sort of considered the Black Rock Desert area. It's pointed out in the yellow circle over the left-hand side. We have significant potential for these deep sedimentary basins in Utah. This is something that UGS has been working on for well over a decade, where our first published papers looking at this resource. You see we have a number of partnerships. We work with Sandia National Labs, doing an analog study at right next door in Nevada, Steptoe Valley. So we've got all of these projects, and it's great, but we're not, a lot of it is federal dollars, and so we're kind of stuck with whatever those federal initiatives are, their goals, their agendas, and it might not meet what we need to do here at the state, what we need to focus on here at the home base. What we need is a bit of influx of funding from the state so that we can pursue our own goals that would be, in the best interest of Utah and its citizens. So how do we step that forward? Our initial push or pitch is that, look, we've done $2.5 million worth of work for this Forge project. That's now been funded up over $300 million by federal grants. And then as of last year, you've got a commercial company that has come in to develop that site. And then their estimates for kind of the economic value is around $1 billion. This is at that Cape Modern site outside of, right next door to Forge, outside of Milford, Utah. So this is sort of our value. This is what we're putting into it. We don't need a lot of money to help boost things up. And of course, Operation Gigawatt was announced back in October. That is our geothermal building block, and also the OED, the Office of Energy Development, their nuclear building block together. But basically, that plan is to double Utah's electricity production in the next 10 years. The money that we're requesting is going to go towards really tools and some staffing time to be able to really do a good statewide assessment for geothermal, create favorability maps, and then do a couple of detailed site studies. And then the breakdown of that. So we're asking close to $5 million. The colors of the pie chart don't exactly correlate to the Gantt chart that you see on the bottom there. But basically, this is kind of the breakdown. Most of that, the bite of the funding is going to go towards upgrading equipment. And the biggest issue with federal grants, even though we've been quite successful in getting federal grants, is we can't purchase equipment. And if we do purchase equipment, we have to surrender that at the end of that project, unless the value of it is under $4,000 or something, which is not much. So really this funding request is going to be enhancing the UGS capabilities, with our tool set. You see there's staffing in there, 2 FTEs located into the The governor's budget was $150,000, so 1 FTE, which still helps with our bandwidth. Software, there is the geothermal grant program, which which is something that we will do to help fund students at universities to do geothermal research in tandem with this project, as well as getting funding to help support and revive a geothermal working group for the state of Utah. And that's something that Bob Blackett was doing single-handedly for a number of years. But it's too much work without having support to kind of carry it forward. And we've got partners and collaborators that are interested in kind of helping with that effort. But what I want to point out here, we're looking at maybe 4 to 5 years. The Gantt chart is running across the bottom there. Most of our money spent will be in that first year for equipment purchases, staff hiring, software. And then once we get past that point, we will start doing more detailed assessments for each of these sites as we roll forward. But year one is really sort of data aggregation statewide and favorability maps. Here's just another look at sort of the workflow. So data synthesis, we don't have a modern collection for the state of Utah or a data repository, so that's something that we will create. Of course, it'll be public facing so that anybody that wants to use that data can, ask us and can get access to it. One thing that we also want to point out is from our previous work, and including the ingenious stuff that Eugene is managing. We have 2 to 3 good leads already for detailed site assessments, and that's something that we can start on, maybe in the first month 6 to 12 of that first year. So we're not waiting to do a full statewide assessment before we start doing the detailed stuff. Statewide assessment just allows us to get a better snapshot of what all the other data sets that are available, favorability, just to make sure there's not anything else that we've missed based on past methods of doing this type of research. Let me step it forward for the other sites with site characterization, resource modeling, and then sort of the final bit here is that scientific drill hole, which if you notice, $1.3 million here, it's not cheap to drill holes. And really a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from industry is that, all this surface data, geophysics, geology is great, but they have to have something that is ground truth, below, in the subsurface, right? In situ data. But that's expensive. And that's, not something that's easily put into many budgets, even federal grants. It really just kind of, it totally destroys your project budget because there's also a high uncertainty in what that cost is going to be once you finally get to that phase. But that would be the last bit. And then we can update our resource model based on, physical rock properties, temperature data, water chemistry, other downhole logs, for that data that we collect from those drill holes, and then kind of run that back through. But basically at the end of, this 4 or 5 years, there's a little summary on page 2 of the text that talks about sort of what we will generate, but we'll have statewide favorability maps, data compilations, all publicly facing. Then also we'll have, a suite of 3 to 4 new geothermal resource prospect leads that we will, do as best as we can as far as geologic de-risking, so that we can hand it off to industry for development, or they can kind of take it in whatever direction they want to go. So basically we're playing that role that we've always played. We're just improving and upgrading the tools that we have available so that we were able to provide more value to industry so that they can take this data and run with it. And that's pretty much it, unless anyone's interested in sort of some of the tools that we use. Geophysics is sort of my background, so I'll have a couple of slides here with geophysics, gravity, magnetics. These are all subsurface methods or modeling methods. electromagnetics, TEM is one, magnetotellurics. With these methods, you're able to image, on the order of tens of meters to a few kilometers into the subsurface to figure out what are your structures, geometries, volumes, which then that feeds into your geothermal models and sort of what is the reservoir, what is the type of play here. Then you feed in temperature data from there to really sort out what's the potential at this site and maybe the economic feasibility. And that's it.
So, go ahead, Ken.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Oh, that's, right, so is the 4.3 million is what made it into the governor's budget?
Yeah, we requested 499, but yeah, 4.3 is what was put into the budget.
And if that gets approved, when would that become available? Is it the next?
The beginning of the fiscal
year,
July 1.
Good.
Yeah.
So of the 700,000 that was cut out, about 500,000 was a grant program. The grant program, basically funding to provide grants to like universities and whatnot to partner with us on the research. That was a big cut, and the other was a cut in the one person basically.
Oh, the FTE.
That's the feedback I got from the governor's office of planning. When they went from 5 to 4.3, that's what they were envisioning us taking.
Some additional information there too. The 499 we were encouraged to go that high by Joel Ferry. I'm sorry, Christian, if you said that. We were encouraged to go that high, right? We were originally envisioning just a couple million, maybe. We thought that was a big ask, but Joel pushed for 5, so we did, and we were very happy to get the 4.3 back too. That's a really good push. Yeah, I mean, so our ask is, of course, if you have any interactions with legislators, anybody who can influence this budget, please encourage them to support it or expand it.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing to note.
As you said, let us know.
Yeah, we will let you know.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is that all the equipment and most of the software upgrades are things that are not only useful for geothermal, but they're also good for groundwater studies, geologic mapping, geologic hazards. So it's not going to be a set of limited use tools. It's not just geothermal. So that's the other part of this that I wanted to make sure that we were getting something that actually is going to give not just the geothermal research a boost, but UGS a boost, because we've been in dire need of upgrading these tools for well over a decade.
And a lot of this is data that we'll be able to, maybe I'm just rephrasing what you said, Christian, but integrate it with like Tara, who came on to do INSAR data. You can integrate a lot of what he's doing.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of overlap with these data set. Yeah, the data products that come out of this can also be applied to other fields and not just geothermal. So it'll be huge once we find out what gets funded.
Awesome. And so it looks like it's a 5-year spend down for.
I think realistically, it's probably going to be 5 years.
It's important to note, after the governor made a few cuts, but there's 150,000 of the 4.3 is ongoing. So we envision that to be a new FTE. And then the 3.15, that's one-time funds, about 600,000 of that is set aside for staff time, current staff, or we could hire temporary staff to help cover the.
And I think, to Joel's credit, he saw this as a really big idea. Let's chase big ideas. And we've got staff that love chasing big ideas. Okay, great.
Fantastic
Thank you.
presentation. Thank
Yeah.
you. That was really great. Thank you. That's the presentation.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When is that?
Not till August, but I'm hoping somebody cancels and we can move it up.
And just so you know, I'm gonna need a few of those slides for next week.
Yeah, I'll get you more concise, more detailed, because you can only have one or two, like a few, so we can.
Yeah, I want to get down to 2 or 3 slides.
What's your sense of this, what you kind of gauge is the, I guess, the percentage of success?
I think the interest level is high.
It seems like it. That's why I'm really hopeful.
The challenge is gonna be of the legislators that I've spoken with, what they're hearing from both Senate and House leadership is that it's gonna be a flat budget year. And so to get funds for these sorts of things, they're gonna have to prioritize. You know, with this will now become more important than something else we were doing before. We will no longer do that. We will do this instead.
Well, energy is the priority this year.
Energy is a priority this year.
The governor really wants it to happen.
And this is, excuse me, and this is both from the governor's side and the legislative side. I'm mine.
And, you know, given that we're sort of paired with a $20 million ask for nuclear, you know, I think we're sitting in a nice position where we can deliver a lot for that 4.3 million. And then there's a sort of, you know, $20 million ask for nuclear that honestly, at least I haven't seen the level of detail that's a little blurrier about how that money would be spent. And I think, you know, Christian and Eugene and Mike have done a really good job packaging this as like, this is concrete. You know, we know what we can do with these funds, and the return on investment that is included in your slide, which I hope is what you'll include in something that you present to the legislature. The return on investment is very high.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important selling point.
And to underscore how important it is, I know they took a legislative trip to Iceland. We signed an MOU with the Icelandic government. Not just geothermal, but on geothermal and some other initiatives, and then they came and visited here. So we've had that exchange. How do we share their knowledge, our knowledge? Yeah, I see a hand in the back. Go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, you know, something that also helps our chances with getting this funded. Yesterday, there was an executive order from the White House that any new sort of AI related infrastructure. So like these data centers that are coming online, Fervo is a company that's, you know, they're looking at getting involved with that. Any infrastructure that's on federal land, they're going to require that it's going to be clean, renewable energy, and geothermal has been called out, you know, a few dozen times for that. So
yeah,
that's something that's unavoidable. I think that's also good, you know, support for the work that we want to do. Is it's important, and now is the time that we need to kind of jump on that.
Yeah, and we've taken a number of our state legislators down to Fervo and to Forge in the last year. I've been involved in at least 2 of those trips where we've taken, and they're interested. They've gone to, like I said, Idaho National Labs to look at the nuclear. So there's huge interest.
What a great driver for rural.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just kind of hits all the sweet spots, right? So,
so anyway, we're thank you for you guys sharing
that.
that.
In terms of success.
Yeah, thanks for your time and attention.
Yeah, it kind of, you know, looks like a moonshot at the beginning to put that big of a number out, but it's looking, you know, more and more really positive. So we'll know in like a month, right?
And to our researchers there in the back, this board, they'll help. If we need to make calls, if there's people you think that they can reach out to.
Okay, great.
And get ready.
Okay.
Life is gonna change.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you guys. That was a great presentation. Very appreciate it.
Okay, let's see, current through. Do you want to talk to this?
I think Cheryl
Alright,
kind of
sure.
did the digging into this, but if you remember late last year, we did an update on board member terms that actually had expired at that point. And, you know, polled those board members about their willingness to continue to serve. Sam Quigley did let us know that he wanted to step down, and it gave us the opportunity to bring Neil on. So if your name is up there, your board term is current through March 31st.
So it expires March 31st.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for you to think about your willingness to continue to serve. And if you'd like to continue to serve, let us know. If you think, you might feel like it's your time to step down, please also let us know, and we'll,
So if they want to stay, what specific actions do they or we need to take?
well, you can let myself or Cheryl know. If you want to make a comment here, you're welcome to. And
Do we go to
then-
the governor's board? and
Yeah,
say-
so the next steps for us, if we do have an open board position, is we would reach out to our liaison at the Utah Boards and Commissions, Brooke Schaefer, and she would open that position up. Last time we kind of polled around the survey about people that, we thought would be great candidates to join our board, which is how we got Neil's referral. That is an open position, really anyone could apply. And then we would, for the UGS will review the applicants and, for ward recommended nominations to the board of commissions, and they would forward that to the governor's office and the legislature, but really anyone could apply. So one limitation that we do have that we've been working with is right now the statute for our board is restricted really to like minerals and minerals really, and a little bit of oil and gas, and a member at large from the public, right? So we have asked to have our board, the diversity of our board in terms of industry be expanded a little bit to more fully represent what the UGS actually does in terms of programs. And so that includes, groundwater wetlands, includes geologic hazards, and ideally someone from the energy industry. And if we could bring someone on who has a geothermal background, that'd be great. But only if we have an open position. We really appreciate it. I know this is volunteer, I've sat on boards. It is a volunteer position, and you guys are really, really helpful to help us steer and, ask us the hard questions and support us with our legislation also. So yeah, so that's where we're at with y'all.
Okay, so I would like to continue past March 31st. So,
okay,
do I?
You don't need to do anything. I'll just make a note.
So we'll pass on that they want to stay.
Yeah,
That was my
I'll send
question.
an email follow-up.
Okay.
If you're welcome to say something publicly here, but you also don't have to. Could you just put those names?
Because once they open
Yeah,
it,
I'm bringing them up right now.
doesn't she have to, once they do open, then she will have to go in and submit something, right?
Oh, does she have to reapply?
Didn't you have to do that?
I think so.
recently? You guys
Yeah,
have to go in
do
and
it.
submit something,
Both
yeah.
times.
So
Oh,
we'll let you
sorry.
know.
Okay.
Bad
As soon as it
info.
reopens, when we
Sorry,
talk
you
to the
guys.
board, we'll have her reopen it, and then I'll let you know. that it's been
Okay.
open.
So here's what is currently at the state's level. So you've got the director Sitla, it's not a voting member, but, so that's Stephanie was representing Sitla today. Then a public at large, which Elissa holds. And then mineral industry, 1, 2, 3. One from the oil and gas, and one from geology, practice civil engineering.
And the ones
And
that
one
are
for
renewing right now.
Economic or scientific interest of them. That's how it's currently statuted out.
And the ones that are renewing, there was a bullet list in your slide.
Oh, on our slide. I just want them to see what the list was and what the seats are right now and who's in them.
Okay, so Rick, Dave, Riley, and Becky, everybody else is current.
So
Yeah,
tell you
so-
what, we will double check with the boards and commissions, and we'll make sure you have the specific information you need to renew.
Okay.
We'll
We'll
send
do
it,
that.
we'll send a follow-up email.
Sure, we'll
out,
do that.
Asking you about your interest and then giving you direction about what to do, whichever way you decide to go.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Becky. And let me see if there's any comments from our online guys. Nope, I don't see anything from Riley. You're okay. Anyway, just wanted to make you at least aware. In that webpage that I went to, that I just went to boards and commissions, we typed in geological board, pull that list up. We're pretty.
And be careful, because there's 2 geology boards. There's also a board for professional licensure for geologists, so just make sure you take a look at them, right?
Which I chair. Oh. Okay. There are some interesting changes for licensure this year. Probably not. There's a bill in front of the legislature this year to remove the requirement that your degree comes from an accredited university. And it's for engineers, architects, geologists. You don't have to Of course, I asked Rick Ford, who's a retired professor, so I couldn't find a geology program in the country that wasn't from an accredited university. So it was an interesting thing to try to do. We also need to pick some dates for our meetings this year.
And they're typically on the, what is this, the 2nd or 3rd Wednesday?
This is the 3rd Wednesday in January today. So 3rd Wednesday in February. I know in the past.
April.
Or in April, sorry. Did we not pick these dates before? Would be the 16th of April. That'd be the 3rd Wednesday in April.
The 16th.
So I'm just throwing dates out there. If there's huge disagreements, this is your time to speak up. And then that works. Then in August, the 3rd Wednesday would be the 20th of August.
So it's April what again?
16th.
16th. And then that'd be the 20th in August. Field trip. I'm just gonna look back at last year. We've done this typically in late September.
Like the 3rd week or something.
Yeah, we've sometimes done them in October. But last year, our board trip is the 19th and the 20th of September. That was a Thursday, Friday.
Friday. Should we do the 18th and 19th?
Do the 18th and 19th? That's fine with me. And then
Well, you're still coming, Bill.
on the field trip?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Remember we passed that?
You did pass that.
We did.
They did, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, that he would be attending the.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah. And then for next January, the 3rd Wednesday would be the 21st. Now, I'm gonna make a suggestion.
Move it up.
Move it to the 14th.
Yeah.
Because the Wednesday is the 2nd day of the legislative session next year. We try to meet before the legislative session. Because man, once that legislative session hits, some of us here are running pretty fast. We got accelerate our meeting with, I think I told you it's on next Thursday. We'll be in front of the Appropriations Committee. So did you get the dates then, Cheryl?
Yep.
You got them, okay. I'm gonna bring up one other item. You may remember about 2.5 years ago, we had asked to designate the St. George Dinosaur Discovery Site at Johnson Farms. I'm trying to make sure I get that full name right as a paleontological landmark. And we approved it, and then we had to go to the city because they were the landlord to get their permit, and they balked. Do you remember?
Why?
Because it required them to give up some control over the land. And so then, and I'm coming to a point here, but I'm giving you a little bit of history. So then, for the last 2 years, through their local state legislator, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Elissa in Tocqueville, they wrote some changes into the statute about lands and control, which gave St. George City some favorable status. So now they sent me a letter last night, literally yesterday afternoon, asking if the board could consider today redesignating it as now they've made the change they want as a paleontological landmark. And I responded to them that I couldn't do that because we are required to put items like that on our agenda on a 7-day public notice. I did say I'd be willing to convene the board later before our next meeting if we needed to. Is there a willingness or an unwillingness to do that? We could do it as a one-time meeting, one single topic. We would put an advance notice out there, but that is an agenda item. And we could do it virtually. But before they can do that, they've got to sort out some issues that they have internally at the city. They want to put a power substation on one of the lands they want to designate. So I've asked them to sort that out before.
Is that why they're in a hurry?
That's, yeah.
That's why they're in a hurry.
And Jim Kirkland brought this to Bill's attention.
About the power
because,
substation.
Yeah, there's a power substation that would land basically right on top of a really important fossil bed. And they spent some time trying to get the substation relocated. That effort has not panned out.
At least yet.
And so, yeah, it's worth a second look. And we also want to kind of dig into whether there's a deed restriction on the land that was donated. But all that aside, yeah. So
I would support making it a paleontological. I have no problems doing that.
we just need to follow the protocol.
We got to follow the
Without public
protocol. So
notice.
I'm just saying if in the next month or so, I send you a note and say, can we all convene on this time and date?
Sure.
I don't think it'd be more than a 15-minute.
Yeah, that'd be fine, sure.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up with you. We're not constrained to have 4 meetings a year. We're just required to have 4 meetings a year. We can meet more often if we want, and something like this, I'd be happy to support it, but they need to get their ducks in a row down there. And I've been on phone calls. I mean, the city reached out to me late November on how to do this. And I sent them how to do it. And then the representative reached out to me in December asking how to do it. And I sent them, and these are laws that they helped rewrite. I found really interesting. But we've given them that guidance. And then when I got the letter yesterday saying, hey, can you consider this tomorrow morning? Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't follow the legal procedure for notice. So I just said I'd be happy to reconvene. So appreciate your willingness to do that.
And we can do that meeting virtually, right?
Yeah, we can do that
Yeah, we
virtually. Yeah, because the state allows us to hold a virtual meeting. And like I said, it wouldn't need to be very long, but we would want to just follow the protocol. So I think that's all we have. I would turn it back to you, Chair.
Well, I don't have anything other than I'm just really excited about all the geothermal activity and hopeful that it gets funded and great work. And does anybody else have anything? What about Riley or Rick?
They are still
Online.
on.
Online.
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Riley's on mute, but
It's not like him to be so
I
quiet.
know.
I
I
know.
heard his voice.
He may be sitting in some other meeting. Maybe he's hiking in a 14.
Multitasking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're making fun of him and he's not responding. Anyway, we appreciate you guys being here. As I'm going to make one other at least suggestion that I know the board has offered to help and you've helped in the past. If we get this bill going to change that percentage on the severance, I might make a reach out to the board if you guys would lobby on our behalf.
If you'll at least identify who you think
I
the
will.
key people are on the committees that you want us to get a hold of, I'd be happy to.
I will do that. Just giving you an advance notice on that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate your help.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Ken or Dave, do you have anything else?
Nope.
No? Well, thank you all then. It is 11:02 and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Goodbye, Rick. Goodbye, Kent, Rick.